has been 1 year since the murder of George Floyd by policeman Derek Chauvin in Minneapolis, a moment in time that finally made people stop and say enough is enough. On the 8th of July 2020, rain delayed the start of the first test between England and West Indies at the Aegeus Bowl. We ran a truly remarkable piece by Michael Holding and Ebony Rainford-Brent.
I can still remember the moment I found out about George Floyd. I was lying in bed and turned my phone on. I remember it was the first thing that came up in my story, the video of George Floyd. It was like a short version, and I clicked on it, and I clicked on and I clicked off because the first thing you heard was the words, "I can't breathe."
People could see life slowly ebbing out of the man, and people could see the look on the police officer's face and the look on the faces of the other police officers that were around, as if they did not care. If this man dies, it's just another black man that we have killed.
I watched the whole thing. I watched the 8 minutes and I burst into tears. The pain I felt, it felt like a valve popped, because we know for how long that these inequalities, these injustices have taken place, not just in the US, it happens here. And I remember watching it and just feeling like I was torn apart. I actually swore I never swear or rarely swear on my Instagram, and I wrote the words, "Is anyone else fed up watching black people get murdered?"
If you don't educate people, they'll keep on growing up in that sort of society and you'll not get meaningful change.
I think it can't be a black person's problem. I'm putting that in inverted commas. It's got to be everyone's problem. We've got to want a society that is representative and supports people from different backgrounds. So for me, that's where it's got to be. Honest conversations, opportunities, people in positions of power, and we can change the landscape.
Everyone is recognizing it. Everyone is now coming alive and seeing the difference in treatment of people. And we're all human beings. So I hope that people will recognize that this Black Lives Movement is not trying to get black people above white people or above anyone else. It's all about equality. And when you say to somebody, Black Lives Matter, and they tell you all lives matter or white lives matter, please, we black people know white lives matter. I don't think you know that Black Lives Matter. So don't shout back at us about all lives matter. It is obvious, the evidence is clearly there that white lives matter. We want black lives to matter now. It's simple as that.
Well, it was emotive, it was powerful, and it reached millions of people and hopefully started some conversations. Michael Holding and Ebony there speaking very honestly. And then, of course, we followed that up with a live chat that day at the Aegeus Bowl, where Nasser joined myself and Mikey. And I'm delighted to say that the three of them join us now for the cricket show. Welcome to you all. Mikey, I'm going to start with you. First things first, how's the sunshine in the Cayman? Bring some sunshine into our lives, because it's been peeing down here for months.
Yeah, I've been hearing about that one. I expected that when May came along, it would start to warm up, the rains would go away, but not so. But to be honest, last weekend here in Cayman, it rained as well. I was in the eastern side of the island. It rained the entire weekend. But it's a lot warmer. You can stand in that rain and feel comfortable.
We're sharing the love with the rain. Mikey, can I start with you? How did that piece come about? Can you explain how that, in the inception of how that idea came?
Well, I was still here in Cayman last year, as you know, with the COVID restrictions and what was happening with the pandemic. We weren't absolutely sure that we would get cricket that summer. And I was sitting here in Cayman waiting to find out if there would be cricket. And of course, the George Floyd incident happened. And as you know, Ebony had this meeting, was amongst you guys in the meeting that the cricket department had, and she spilled her soul about the entire thing. And then Hendo called me, Brian Henderson, our boss, called me here in Cayman and said, Mikey, we want to do something on this Black Lives Matter and surrounding the entire thing with George Floyd. Are you willing to speak? Would you get involved? I said, Hendo, absolutely. You ask me, I'll tell you what I think. And that is how basically it started. And of course, as you know, eventually we heard that cricket was on. But Hendo then got back to me and said, listen, we can record it from where you are. You don't have to come to England with the restrictions. And as he said, you're in the vulnerable age, Mikey. I said, no. Once there's cricket, I am coming. And of course, when I got there, that video was recorded.
Ebony, for you, I remember the Teams meeting we were having. Mikey touched on it there. How difficult was that bit, before we get to recording that piece of Mikey, how difficult was it just to speak to the Sky Cricket Department on that Zoom call and say what you did?
Yeah, it's really interesting because I thought I was all right. I remember Hendo called me a couple of minutes before as well, just to sort of flag that we were going to be talking about it, which surprised me. I think that we were giving so much airtime, but equally, I think a good measure of a team is wanting to discuss something like that. And I thought I was fine. I made a couple of bullet points. And then once I started to speak, as you all saw, like it just flooded out. I think it was years of, it was a moment of, I suppose, realizing it's something that I've wanted to supposedly speak in that sort of way, but maybe never felt the moment was right. And then the emotions overwhelmed. I think the thing that was really powerful, though, is how, as a team, we connected. I think it opened up conversations. We spoke deeper. We all talked about the vision we want to see. And once I got onto the WhatsApp with Mikey, because I have to admit, I wasn't necessarily so keen to do the piece. I didn't think anyone was going to feel it or it was going to work. But Mikey was a legend in the way he was very clear. Look, this is a chance to have a platform, say something. You don't always get that opportunity. And so since then, we've been on the WhatsApps, Mikey, for a good year now. And I think he inspired me to really kind of find my voice in this space as well.
But Ebs, there was some fear about doing it, and fear about doing the VT piece that we've just seen.
Massive. I've talked a bit about how I turned off most of my social media. Well, we've been talking about online hate, and I know I get my fair share of shove your jerk chickens up wherever. I get my fair share of comments. So I was just thinking, talking about this subject at such a heightened time, it was going to possibly tank, and I didn't really want the potential backlash. So I turned off my social. I think I only turned it back on the day after Nasser, and Hendo pretty much says, have a look, it's actually positive. But I didn't think it was going to go very well at all. What I am grateful for is it surprised me, the response, and it really did cut through.
Mikey, when you saw that VT and the way it was cut and what Ebony had said and what you had said, what did you think watching it back?
Well, I know the time constraints that were involved, Wadi, and I can understand why a lot of what I said was shortened into that bit of BT. And that's why I was so happy that the rain fell. Not very often that I'm happy that the rain falls when I'm not playing, that is. As a commentator, you want action. But that gave us the opportunity to really expand on what I had said and what was produced in that video, because I needed to really expand on the aspect of education more than just saying, oh, we need education. We want to talk about how you educate, what you educate people about. So I was very happy about getting that opportunity. But I think the video that Ebony and myself, even after it was constricted within the time constraints, was still very powerful, still able to reach people, because a lot of people saw the video and didn't actually see the live thing that we did before the start of play, and they still were impacted. And then when they saw the live, of course, that then got a bit more coverage and they understood a bit more. But I think the video did a very good job.
Were you worried about doing it live at all? When you look back at it, have you watched it back? Did you say exactly what you wanted to say? Was there more you could have said?
I could have said a lot more, Wadi. I could have said a lot more. But, I think I said enough for people to understand. And that's why at the end of it all, when you came to me and said, what next? I said, nothing. I think I've said enough. I think people should understand exactly what I mean by what I said. I don't think I need to expand. If nobody can get it from what I said, then they don't want to get it. But then, of course, with more people getting involved, with Thierry Henry calling, with so many people getting involved and tell me I have to keep going, I have to do more. And of course, then the idea of the book came up. And I have expanded on it tremendously in the book. I've gotten a lot deeper into the entire aspect and the entire situation with Black Lives Matter and racial injustice and all that in the book. So, you know, in the end, I think it has turned out okay. Like Ebony, I expect a lot of backlash, but unlike Ebony, I'm not on social media, so I'm not going to see a lot of it. And anybody who wants to debate me, I'm quite open to any debate anyone wants to have. I'm not worried about the cowards that hide behind social media with pseudonyms and that sort of thing. But anyone wants to debate me, I am here. I'm ready.
Have you been historically, Mikey, reluctant to talk about things like that?
Yeah, definitely. But it wasn't a situation where I got opportunities to talk about things like that. You know, working for Sky, I worked for Sky 20 odd years, but I'm a cricket commentator. I talk about cricket. My job is to talk about cricket and to try to help people at home to understand what's happening in a cricket field. My job is at Sky is not to talk about racial injustice and racism and that sort of thing. But when given the opportunity by Hendo, I gladly grab that opportunity because I've had this thing inside of me and I've known about this thing for too many years to miss that opportunity. But even as a young man growing up and playing the game, whenever I came across any sort of racism, as I said then, and I was said in the book, and I keep on saying, I just was quite selfish. I just brushed it off. I just said to myself, I don't live this life. At the end of this tour, wherever I am, I'm going back to my home in Jamaica. I have no problems in Jamaica. I don't come across racism in Jamaica. There's a lot of classism in Jamaica, a lot of class bias. But racism, I don't come across it in my country. So I just say to myself, these people have problems. They're idiots. I'm not going to worry myself about them. I'll swim back home. And I just brushed it off. But as I also said to a journalist recently, Wally, I'm glad I had that attitude. Because if I was to rebel against it, and if I was to demonstrate against it, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you guys now. I would not have had 20 odd years at Sky. I would not have had as long a cricket career as I had. Because we see what happens to people who talk about the injustice of racism and racial prejudice. Look at the great Americans done it. People have gone to the Olympics. First and third at the Olympics and go on the podium and raise a hand and talk just to signify that they're against the racism. Their careers came to an end. And we don't have to go back that far either way. Look at Colin Kaepernick. A picture of him is on the front of my book, along with Thierry Henry and Naomi Osaka. Look at his career. He stood up and said he's tired of this. He's showing the world that he's tired of this because it is wrong. His career came to an end. So it's obvious, going back into the 70s, if I had stood up and done anything to signal my disgust, my career would have ended. That was just the world we live in.
Does that resonate with you, Ebs? Yeah, look, I'm going to be brutally honest. If Mikey wasn't speaking on that piece, I wasn't speaking. It wasn't something that I've spoken a huge amount about. I've touched on it in little pieces, but I think that's what's the most extraordinary thing about Black Lives Matter. And I think I've heard you say this, Mikey, is that it was the first opportunity. It was collective voices that could speak about it. Since I suppose you go back to American civil rights, we're talking a good long stretch of history where so many voices were at the same time given that platform. And I think, it is important to be able to have a space to speak and not feel fear. And I felt a huge amount. I still do. I get nervous even talking on this program today. It's not something that I'm comfortable doing. But equally, what I realize now is there is an opportunity to, and when you have a platform like this and when you have a team like Sky, when you have people who put it together, Rob and James who cut it, and that whole family, I suppose, who wanted to make something meaningful, you realize that it is the time to speak. So, for a lot of people out there, they don't have a voice or they don't have this platform. And I think that's what Mikey said to me. It's like, it's time to use it. And I'm grateful that I have this platform.
Nasser, I'm going to bring you in here. Thanks for being patient. You were stood alongside Mikey and myself when we were chatting in the rain, and Mikey was saying the things he wanted to say. When you were listening to him, what was going through your mind?
Well, the first thing was when that rain came down, he turned to you and said, "Wardy, do do you mind? I've got quite a bit to say on this. And then I knew for the next half hour, however long it was going to rain for, I was going to listen to the great man speak, because I'd listened to Ebbs in that meeting. You know, Ebony is a new member, or was a new member to our team. And it was so powerful and brave of her, in front of the whole team, albeit on a computer, to just have everything hanging out there. Ended up in tears. I think she said something at the end like, I'm crying into my sock now. And I WhatsApped her saying, I hope the sock is all right. That was such a brave thing to do. And then it rains. And then Mikey turns to you and says, Wardy, I've got quite a bit to say on this. And I knew, and I've looked back at the footage, and most of the time I was looking at my shoes, not in boredom, but in absolute respect for the great man and the way he was speaking. And I must add, you were brilliant that day, Wardy. I've known quite a few hosts that would interrupt and ask questions. You just let him go. You just let the great man go. 3 things I'd say about that day, having heard Ebbs speak the way she did. When 2 of our team need any kind of support, whether it be the latest one or one of the veterans, you stand up there and give them your support. So there was never any doubt that I was going to stand up there. Our head of cricket, Hendo, said, are you okay wearing the badge, BLM? And I was like, fine. Nothing about the political message of BLM. The only thing I was a bit weird about was wearing a badge that said Black Lives Matter. And as I said on that day, to this day, even when it comes up on Sky and whatever, Black Lives Matter, 2020, how can that not be a given, that a black life should matter? How is that not a given? So that's an absolute definite. I'm putting that badge on. If it needs reinforcing, we'll absolutely reinforce it. And the main thing was, I sat there watching the Channel 4 doco. It was a news thing, actually. And I sat there watching the news, and George Floyd was being murdered in front of our eyes. And I had to look away. I could not watch someone being murdered on our TV screens. And there was a sort of realization in me that we'd probably all just looked away a bit too long, and something needed to change. And I think, you know, I hope, I mean, Mikey and Ebbs can tell us, hopefully the change has started.
Well, we'll come on to that bit in a minute, but just what Nasser said there, Ebony, I think resonates quite strongly with you, you know, looking away too long.
It does. First of all, look, that whole piece and that whole segment, and watching you guys actually on the court, when Nasser said that bit about not looking away, I think that is a message that cut through in a really interesting way, because I suppose you see my emotion, you see Mikey, both emotion and facts, but I think Nasser really kind of brought it all together, and I think you connected with different voices who may have been looking away. And actually, it was a moment where it possibly made others think, actually, this is the moment I pay attention. And what it has done, and this is where it's become fascinating for our sport, I have no doubt, since that moment for cricket specifically in our country, it has opened the door to people not looking any away, starting to look at the challenges, starting to have conversations about this. So, you know, I never imagined the piece would connect so widely across the game and across the globe. That's way wider when you see, you know, had Michael Clark texting, you have people around the world texting. But what it did do, that segment inspired cricket to take more notice and more attention on issues that need to be done.
It certainly did that. Mikey, if I can ask you, did you know you had all that emotion inside you? You know, you then went across to do Sky Sports News Cross, and if you don't mind me saying, you ended up in tears. It's not something that we've seen from Michael Holding over the years. We've seen passion, and we've seen that sort of, I know what I want to do. But did you know that there was something inside of you that needed to get out in such an emotional way?
Nas, I've been carrying this thing for donkey's years. You know, first time I experienced racism was way back in 1975. That is approaching 50 years now. So it slowly builds up inside of you. And people don't understand what it is like to come under that sort of pressure throughout your entire life. I've been very fortunate, as I've said. I've not lived it the way Ebony lived it. I only experience it more and more as I travel. And of course, the last 25 years or so, I've been traveling a lot. But when you come across that sort of thing on a daily basis, and over the last 20 years, you come across it, some people say things and they don't even realize what they're saying or the effect that it might have on a Black person, because it's just something that they just get accustomed to saying, and their thought processes are just that way because that's the way they were brought up, and that's the way they live their lives. But as a Black person, when you come across certain situations and you hear certain people say certain things, it burns inside. I have had many occasions when people have said something or treated me a particular way when I think to myself, are they just rude or are they racist? Is it because I'm Black why they are saying these things, or why they are treating me this way, or they just don't know any better because they are rude? I have no idea. But as a Black person, the first thing that comes to your mind because of your constant battle with racism is racism. That's the first thing that comes to mind. Sometimes you're wrong, James. And Ebony, sometimes you're wrong. Sometimes a person is not racist. But it builds up inside of you, and the first thought that comes to your mind is racism. That, with me breaking down on Sky Sports News, as you notice, I got reasonably emotional when I was talking to you and Nasser, but I managed to hold it together. But on Sky Sports News, when Mark asked me why I got emotional, that then brought back the memories, because I know what my parents and my mother in particular must have gone through. My father, easygoing, relaxed, not a problem. But my mother, I know throughout her life, I didn't know at the time, but I know afterwards throughout her life, she might have been fighting a battle in her head. And when I started to think about that, the tears flowed. Believe me, I love my parents so much and my mother so much. It hurt me to then recognize the pain that she might have gone through over 40, 50, 60 years. So the pain and the thoughts, the tears flowed.
Ebony, what reaction did you get after the piece had gone out and Mikey had said his piece with myself and Nasser? And what reaction did you expect?
Yeah, I'll start with what did I expect? I expected it to tank, if I'm honest. I expected not this, we're here for the cricket, get out our face, that sort of dismissive sort of attitude. And understandably, I can imagine, look, let's not forget that we've been cricket starved because of the pandemic. This is the first day we're coming back, and people are wanting to watch Joe Root and Jason Holder charging. They don't want. I didn't think that was what was on everybody's agenda. But surprisingly, I suppose the moment and the timing. What the response has been, though, has been incredible. I mean, I've been talking to people, friends for years, trying to get them to care about cricket, and all of a sudden, people from all sorts of walks of life are texting in. I mean, my phone went for maybe 2 weeks straight. My social media, I couldn't get through any of the messages, really. It was just ridiculous. And then I think the knock-on effect, I mean, the recognition myself and Mikey got through the freedom of the city, through London, the city of London was powerful, which, spoke about the fact that it's broken through. I think that's the thing that surprised me. Not just cricket paid attention. I suppose the connection of the emotion and the facts and some of the stuff in the piece connected to the wider community, which was the first time it made me realize how important sport is. And, you look back at history, Basil D'Oliveira, and all these different eras of sport, you realize sport is a powerful piece for connecting. And so, to now know that, for example, it's being used in schools as a video that's played by teachers, to know the PCA have added it as part of their education, to know that it's being used as a segment to connect with people, to understand. We should all feel proud, us guys all sitting here, but the team of, being able to put something like that cross boundaries in such a powerful way.
Mikey, what would you say to those people who that day probably thought, not this again? We were one of the later sports to start up after football, Grand Prix, I think, then us. What would you say to people who's watching this cricket show special and say, not this again? Well, what I would say to them, Nas, is that they should be thinking this should not be happening. There should not be need for this cricket show to be delving into these situations. And if we educate everyone and get them to understand what life is like for all, for whites, for blacks, for everybody, then we will
not get in the situation where we have to keep on repeating shows like this and keep on talking about that sort of situation. And that, I think, is the objective, to educate people and to make sure that people understand what it is like to be in someone else's shoes. I have spoken to people and told them about something that someone sent me on WhatsApp. Two people standing facing each other, and something is written on the ground between them. One person sees a 9, the other person sees a 6, because obviously with them being opposite. All they have to do is to understand that they are seeing what they are seeing, but someone else is seeing the same thing differently. And if they can put themselves in each other's shoes, they can understand why somebody else sees it differently. And all you have to do is walk around and change places, and you will then understand totally what the situation is. And that's what we want people to do. Don't just live your life and think, my life is joyous, it is happy, I don't care. He has a chip on his shoulder, or she has a chip on her shoulder. There's nothing called racism, there's nothing called white privilege. Just try to understand the other person's point of view and put yourself in the other person's shoes, and let us all come together and solve this problem. If anyone doesn't think there's a problem, they are part of the problem.
Mikey, when that had been done at the Aegeus Bowl, you were then interviewing Jason Holder with me, the West Indies captain, who was in the player zone. And we were talking about the VT and what you had said and what Ebony had said. And you said to him, I found the edge, you can catch it. And I took it to mean, like, I've said my piece and now it's up to the younger generation to keep going. Was that fair? And what changed for you to write this book, How We Kneel, How We Rise? Did something change in you after that?
You're totally right with that, Nawal, because as I said to you, I didn't intend to go any further. And of course, with Jason Holder, as I said, I am the bowler. I bowled what was a reasonable delivery. I found an edge. I can't run to first slip and take the catch. Someone has to take the catch to complete the entire wicket-taking process. And I had intended to just slowly slink back into the background, continue, oh, that's a good delivery, oh, that's a bad shot. That was my life again, looking forward to that. But with the feedback, and of course, with the amount of people getting in touch with me and talking about this thing, as you know, you were in the commentary box when Hender said to me, listen, Thierry Henry wants to speak to you. I gave him your telephone number. Listen out for a call. When Thierry called me and told me about his experiences and said, listen, we have to talk. And then Naomi Osaka got in touch with my ghostwriter who is doing the book and said, listen, I can identify with what I saw on that video, because as you know, Naomi Osaka's mother is Japanese. Her father is a Black Haitian. So it's a similar situation with my family and her family. She said, I can identify with that. I need to talk to this gentleman. So the amount of feedback we were getting, I decided, okay, everybody wants to go further. This book perhaps can do that job. I got feedback from people that you wouldn't even expect, positive feedback. I have been going to South Africa now over the last 7 years, last 7 northern winters, their southern summer, of course. And I've made a lot of friends down there. Blacks, Africans, British heritage South African, Dutch heritage South Africans, as you know, the Africans, that sort of thing. And they keep on hearing how the Africans are the most racist people ever. Well, I would tell you, one of the first messages I got, I can't tell you if it was the second, third, fourth, whatever, but one of the first messages I got was from an Afrikaans friend of mine in South Africa. And he said to me, in the message, of course, Mikey, well said. It needed to be said. So if someone like that can tell me that things like that needed to be said and needed to be exposed, I had to move forward with the book. As I said, I expect a target to be on my back when this book comes out. A lot of people will not like it. But as I said, I'm open to debate it with anyone.
Ebs, when you started talking about this, And it's a question I'm going to come to you, Mike, as well, in the research that you've done for your book. When you started talking about it, did you suddenly remember things that you had gone through that had been pushed aside? Not conveniently forgotten. I'm not sure I can say that, but just parked somewhere dark and out of the way.
Well, Mikey knows this because Mikey knows some of my stories, right, Mikey? And I think a lot started to come back. Me and Mikey sat down, we went through it, and I couldn't go there because I didn't realize how much. And if I'm honest, we started scratching the surface. And even after talking to you, Mikey, I started writing more and more down of the explicit as well as the undertone. And I think the explicit list was long. I guess that's the thing is, there's sometimes you can brush off, like Mikey said, is it not? You're not sure. But when I started writing down the list, and then your brain starts to go back to how much you've actually suppressed, I think that surprised me because, I have to be honest, I question myself sometimes of, staying in environments and stuff like that. And when you realize how much you do park and how much you do suppress. I think that's maybe why the team's meeting I was crying into a sock because, let's be honest, sometimes you just to get by, and when you realize it's not time to talk, you just keep it quiet. So I think this is why we've got to speak now, because so many people resonate with the experiences I've had, across the board in different environments and different sectors, but there seems to be common themes. And I think that's what I got told a few people really resonated through what I said, that they've had the same experiences. So I'm not going to lie, I've parked a lot. I've also not said more than 2 or 3% actually. I've maybe showed my emotions, but I haven't gone into the detail because I have to be honest, I'm a little bit fearful. I've still walked through a lot of these doors, and I don't want to deal with day on day having to have an awkward moment. I just want to get forward and get things like ACE moving and get the conversation moving forward rather than having to kind of deal with some of those darker elements. So, that sums it up.
Something I think I was speaking to Mark Butcher at the Oval the other day, and we're doing a documentary about this subject and about the rise and fall of black cricketers and British Asian cricketers, British Afro-Caribbean cricketers. And he said there's a lot of emotion that comes out in that documentary from the likes of Deva Malcolm and Philip de Freitas. There's a lot of stuff in there that we have not realised over the years. And we played with all these cricketers. So, it's been hidden for far too long. Mike, if I can just bring you back in, you were fairly critical after that West Indies series because it was decided not to take a knee after that. Why were you critical? Why did you feel that should carry on for a longer period?
Nas, I think everybody recognizes that the worldwide signal, the worldwide gesture to support Black Lives Matter and to support the entire cause is taking a knee. No, taking a knee in recent time, because taking a knee goes back to Martin Luther King and those people from many years ago when police were beating them and they just went down on their knees and did not fight back. But Colin Kaepernick is the man who in recent times has used that gesture to signal what we are supporting. And I don't see why that should be something that is difficult for people to do. It is a worldwide acknowledgement. Everybody knows what you're doing when you take a knee. I saw a women's football team in Sweden. I'm absolutely sure there are not a lot of racial problems in Sweden. I saw a women's football team in Sweden take a knee before a football game. I saw a young cricket team in Scotland, teenagers, take a knee before their game, just to say we are supporting this cause. As I have said to people, I'm not going to tell people that they must take a knee because I'm not here to tell people what they need to do, because I don't want people to take it as a tick in the box exercise. You must want to support the cause. You must understand and be willing to see that something is wrong, and this is the worldwide accepted way of showing support for the cause. That's all I'm saying, Nas. Everybody knows that's a way of supporting the cause. So why stop it unless you think we have made enough ground, we see we are traveling in the right direction, we are well on the way, we can move on from taking a knee. But right now, I don't think we have made enough ground, especially in the UK. I'm going to be blunt now. I don't see enough action in the UK. I see a lot of action in the US. I see big corporations in the US putting up millions and millions of dollars towards programs to level the playing field. Apart from Sky, who are we seeing in the UK do anything? There's been a little lip service here every now and again, here or there. But what really positive signs and actions have we seen? People will tell you, oh, we're doing this in the background. No. I go back to the age-old saying, justice must not only be done, it must be seen to be done. Don't you think that people will say, oh, you're just jumping on a bandwagon and you're looking to highlight yourself if you take positive action that people can see. Let people see the action you're taking so that others will say, okay, let's join in. Because it takes a huge amount of work to get this thing done. And people will be sitting down in the background thinking to themselves, well, I'm not jumping out into the foreground. I don't see anybody else jumping out in front. I'll just hang back here as well. When I spoke to Michael Johnson about this issue, Michael Johnson himself told me that he is so happy that he can now come forward and say what he has to say, because he says, when you're on your own, it's a lonely place. You need support and you need people around you. So I want to see companies in the UK coming out and taking action and let people see what they are doing and supporting this cause. And until I can see that on a regular basis and action and progress being made, Nas, if I was a sportsman right now, I'm not a sportsman, so nobody's going to see me if I take a knee, but I'll be taking a knee, I'll be bruising my knee.
On the back of that, Ebs, how do you stop it being a box-ticking exercise? Because I know Wilfred Zaha, the Crystal Palace footballer, has decided to stop taking a knee. I'd just like to know both your opinions.
Yeah.
And that, when does it make it more relevant that I'm going to stop doing this, almost to make sure that people notice that this thing's still going on?
Yeah, I take your point completely. I'm somewhere in the middle, I think, on this whole equation. So last summer, when it comes to cricket, I felt we should have taken it for the summer. Why I say that is I felt the 3 games against the West Indies, you're going to do it against the black team, arguably. And then it kind of was parked very quickly. And I don't mind it being parked, like Mikey said, if there's action things happening. But I was thinking with the history of our game, and let's not forget the empire, and if you go into the roots of a lot of it and how cricket actually has been used as a tool through history, to perpetuate some of these values and white supremacy and a lot of these things, if you delve into the history, you'll know, I thought it would have been a great opportunity for cricket to say, this is our moment to take it for the summer at least. I wasn't expecting it to trickle over to this season, but I did think a meaningful amount, which left enough in the consciousness. The danger is twofold, really. One is if you go on too long, and like you say, it can almost feel like people lose track of it happening and not lose awareness, really. And I think the other is also taking it when no action is being taken. I think that's the thing that most really winds me up the most is, Zaha might be feeling like, well, I'm taking a knee. Is there any actual meaningful change happening? And that is pointless to me. I think that is mostly the worst of all the scenarios, is you're not building awareness, you're not making change, you're just kind of doing a symbol to just kind of keep everybody quiet. And so I feel, if I'm honest, cricket could have done it for the season, for the summer, then made big statements about change that's happening and then get on board with the action. And you can then maybe park the symbol. Now where we are is in this kind of maybe middle space where we didn't quite make a statement with it, and there's still a lot of work to be done.
But are the conversations happening now, Ebony, in and around the stuff that you're doing?
Yeah, I would say what it's done is it's opened up a lot of discussions, even from I've spoken to everybody at the top of ECB, from Ian Watmore, really positive conversations, through to Tom Harrison. They've made changes. I think one of the stats I said is there were zeros in every column in positions of influence in our game from the ECB board down. And now we have a new lady, the Baroness Amos, who's just come on board, who Ian Watmore appointed. So there is awareness of movement. What I would say is I am impatient, and I do want to see change quickly, and we've seen results actually quite quickly through ACE. So what I would say is the conversations are there. Those conversations were not happening, and you can't start anything without that. I think the willingness to understand, again, in the past, it would have been something that's dismissed. Now I know that I can have conversations with most people in the game, and it's a discussion. Let's understand, let's educate, as Mikey's talked a lot about. Let's go through those processes. So that is the door. That's the window from my perspective, is we've now got the window, and then I am impatient for change. So I now want to see the next steps.
What do you want to see happen with cricket, Michael?
Sorry, just to echo what Ebony said about Saha. A friend of mine in the UK, who I talk to a lot and talk about racism a lot and all that, and he sent me the clipping of Saha and asked me what I thought. And when I read it, and I read the reasons why Saha says he stopped taking a knee, I said to my friend, I totally endorse his position. I can understand his position. He's saying that he's taking a knee and no action, nothing else is happening. People are coming to him and asking him and talking to him about this taking a knee and that sort of a situation. And he's been talking to a whole host of people, but he sees nothing else apart from the talk. So he's tired of taking a knee. I totally can understand that. I am not thinking that everyone must be the same. Everyone cannot be the same. Me personally, I would never get tired of taking a knee. But I can understand his situation. He's just fed up of taking a knee and seeing no action. But my view is, anyone who doesn't know about the cause, someone coming from Mars and goes to a game and sees everyone go down and take a knee, they may ask the question, why are they doing that? Keep the awareness going. But I can understand people being frustrated and saying, what's the point of me continuously taking a knee and there's no action? Well, me personally, as I said, I would bruise my knee until I go into my grave.
You do finish your book, though, Mike, by saying, we've got a chance. What do you mean by that?
Because I see a lot of positive movement, Wardy. I see a lot of positive influences from people and from organizations and all that. As I said, I see a lot more in the US than I see in the UK, which disappoints me. But I see a lot of positive movement. I see a lot of things happening. I see people now recognizing that there's a problem. I see people now being punished when they do rubbish. Years ago, it would just be brushed under the carpet, move on, it's no big thing. But now I see people taking things seriously. I see organizations getting involved deeply. Not just on the surface and saying, okay, we can make a few little changes here or there. I see things really happening. But as I said, I'm very disappointed in a lot of things I see in the UK. Let me give you 2 examples. I am constantly in touch with a lot of people who send me things, and I saw a company had an ad with a black couple in it for Christmas. And the comments that they got, one comment that really struck home with me, okay, so when are we going to get our white Christmas? No, that just irritates me so much that people can't just understand what life is all about. Then there was another quiz program on another network. Apparently there were 3 black couples, and Ofcom got hundreds and hundreds of complaints. Complaints because the 3 couples were black. Come on. Aren't we all human beings? I just don't get that sort of thing. But at the same time, I have seen progress in other areas. You'll always have racism. You'll always have racists. As I've said to people, getting rid of racism totally is like saying you're going to get rid of crime totally. It is impossible. But the less crime you have in your society, the less racism you have in your society, the better off the world is as we go ahead.
We need to take a quick break, and then when we come back, something that's very close to Ebony's heart surrounding the ACE programme, we'll have a look at where cricket is trying to help things. Now, Ebony has been instrumental setting up the ACE programme. That's designed to increase cricketing opportunities for members of the black community. Now a standalone charity making great strides supporting diverse talent from grassroots to the elite.
Hello and welcome to the press launch of the ACE programme charity. My name is Ebony Rainford-Brent and I'll be hosting proceedings today, so I'm absolutely delighted to be here.
Now, Surrey have announced that their ACE programme, designed to increase opportunities for the African Caribbean community, is to become an independent charity following more than £500,000 worth of support from Sport England.
Well, now what we're going to do is build the programmes from the bottom up, look at the grassroots, build school programmes, community programmes and link that all the way through. This is a serious programme that can make a difference.
You must once again stay at home, protect the NHS and save lives.
In January 2020, we launched an initiative aiming to re-engage the Black British community with cricket in London. 25 scholarships were handed out to players in 2 age groups, all with the chance to play and train at the Oval.
For black players playing cricket, it's decreasing, and not just at the county level, at the recreational level as well.
It was really shocking to me when I found out the figures about like a 75% decline. Again, it's not something that was on the forefront of my mind, but now when I think about it, you know, that's so shocking, and a programme like this is really going to change that.
Good. Cricket is one of the sports that you need facilities, you need the resources, and it's quite hard. It's quite hard for a lot of players, and especially without being in a private school or a pathway within a county. Access to facilities just by itself, just for recreational purposes, is quite hard to get.
We've had 2 training days here for the boys and girls. We selected from the winter pre-COVID. Unfortunately, because of COVID, we've had to cut our summer short, but it was still a good summer for them to have 2 training days here at the Care Oval, to have a game at our out ground LSC, and then also to have a game here. I think they all went away really proud players.
The pitch here is amazing. It's a different level, completely different to club cricket. It's like one of my dreams to play on an international cricket ground. It's amazing.
I found out through an email that I got the ACE scholarship, and I can tell you that it was one of the happiest moments of my life. I remember I just jumped up, shouted, screamed all over the house, called my mum and dad, and we definitely got to celebrate a special achievement.
I especially like the social aspect, you know, being around my friends who also enjoy the game too, and I love bowling, especially like bowling aggressively at the opponents and trying to get them out.
We've taken big strides to get 24 young people that we didn't really know about, and they've had a chance to play here and train at the Oval, and we've seen them develop over a short period of time. And you know, thankfully, we've had one player in particular who's come through and now is being seen by our academy performance managers and is going to get opportunities to play for the under-18s. Now, that wouldn't have happened without this programme.
The thing that's great about it is I believe that anyone can do it. You know, if you can't think you can't pick up a bat, I'm sure you can run. You know, you've got to run in the field, you've got to run between the wickets, everyone can throw. There's so many different elements to it that can make like so many different people enjoy the sport.
You're going to come and stand here. We're looking and finding anybody out there that wants to play cricket. But also with that comes, we can help you access not just playing at county level, but we hopefully could get you to access playing at, you know, first team club level, or becoming a scorer, or getting involved with being a physio, or an S&C guy. So there's so many angles that you can be within the game.
After a successful first summer, ACE continued making national headlines as autumn brought some thrilling news. Today we're going to announce this exciting partnership with Sport England, who have invested over £500,000 over the next 3 years to support us reaching these communities and to make a difference. They've set us the exciting challenge of taking the insight, the learning and the passion and we can look to have a wider and maybe more national impact. So the ACE programme charity has been born. Yeah, it's big, isn't it? It's one of those where, I remember when we were speaking, should we go big to Sport England? Will they match that? And they did.
The thing that's missing for so many of them is opportunity. If you give them the opportunity to get involved, many of them will grab it. And this is such a brilliant example of a programme and now a fledgling organisation that's going to help many more young people have those opportunities. Good ideas are great, but people who've tested them, and what Surrey County Cricket Club have done here is they've given this an opportunity to prove its worth, and that's why we can now with confidence get behind it.
It's a talent ID programme, so hopefully we'll have them playing at the highest level. But also, if we can just make them better cricketers, better people, it's important that we're realistic in that we might not get 20 county cricket players. It's not just about that, it's about helping these players on their journey, developing as individuals.
It's a great scheme, it's a great programme, but are we playing catch-up in reality after years of complacency and neglect?
Long overdue, long overdue. How many other industries or sporting establishments would allow one demographic that you knew had a 75% interest and drops nearly to 0%, and for 20, 30, 40 years and not allow anything to happen? That's a clear problem.
There are going to be many people to say thank you to today.
Ebony Rainford-Brent, who's at the heart of this and the leader of this, the work that she did with Michael Holding on Sky in the early days was absolutely central, not only to getting people's attention but to keeping it going. Black Lives Matter has been picked up by the athletes and the retired athletes, and they're not going to let this go away until they see real change.
West Indian clubs, or the black clubs that tried to get established, never got homes. There's a lot of wandering clubs. I really want to work towards building more homes or places that the clubs can go, that the prices aren't going to shoot up on them, that they know that they can get fixtures on set days, that they know that they can do fundraisers and build around that. So that home, that infrastructure is massively important for making sure the community can thrive in 5 to 10 to 20 years' time.
Behind the scenes, what we're hopefully going to help with is just making sure that they're clear about how they can measure their success. We can connect them to other parts of the country where they might be able to take their model. And hopefully, at the end of the day, what we can do is turn this into a programme which runs everywhere.
With plans to run the programme in 5 cities across the country, Birmingham became the first city to launch after support from the ECB and Warwickshire.
Basically, the plan for the programme is basically just to try and get some of the black community back involved in cricket. It's really decimated in Birmingham, to be fair. I know there's programmes starting in London where there is some youngsters playing cricket in London. I find that in Birmingham there's basically nothing happening at all. So we're going to start with a schools programme, just going to schools. And you know what? Let's have some cricket, come and whack a ball, come and bowl a ball, come and field the ball, and just get that infinity with cricket back into the community.
Bowled it, fallen straight from Barker. Excellent bowling from Gordon.
Black talent is always there. It's about how you bring it out.
One such young player is Davina Perrin. The 14-year-old from Staffordshire might just be a future England star. All right, Davina, so plan, I think we'll start on the front foot, and then as you feel comfortable, if you want to crank it up or change the length, you just let me know. So what are your favourite shots?
I'm quite confident with pull shots, cut shots.
Okay, yeah, like the short ball. Ready? Good balance.
It's just how at ease I feel when I'm playing it. There's that adrenaline rush and everything about it makes me feel happy.
Loving the attacking play. What I think we're going to do is pretend we're opening the innings. We'll go V first, then occasionally I'll throw in one.
One person I love to watch is Michael Holding. From the first time my dad showed me a clip of him bowling, I was like, I want to bowl like that.
You've got 6 balls, and I want 3 boundaries. Woo! That is over. Extra's got, yeah, boundary.
Outside of cricket, say Serena Williams, she's such a great advocate for everything I stand for, really, and I aspire to be like her.
Everything's going to be traditional pool, and then when I say offside, then I don't I really want to inspire other young black girls in particular. I just want to be the best I can be, go all the way, hopefully.
To be continued indeed. Come on then, Ebs. Where's this going, this ACE programme? It seems like you've made enormous strides.
Yeah, it's moving really quickly. I have to give big thanks actually to Richard Gould, who the departing Surrey CEO, who we spoke about the ACE before Black Lives Matter. So it's something we started last January, and he said, get on with it. What a guy. He said, let's get on with it and let's see if we can make quick inroads. We set it up because there was a 75% decline in black professional players. And we also knew there was underrepresentation, not enough coming into the game. And so we just wanted to see, is there talent out there? Is there interest? And can we offer some scholarships and get some opportunities for some people? And surprisingly, we found some real talent out there in the game. You know, we had a kid go and play for Surrey under 18s. We've had 3 more get opportunities to now train in county levels, not because it's forced, it's because they deserve those opportunities. But what we are clear on is the interest is out there. You know, I'm gonna throw to Mikey a little bit because I'm so grateful you and many of the greats have lent your voice. And I think we've got 2 opportunities. It's not just to excite a new generation, but we also have such a deep history that when the young people have seen you, and I don't know if you even hesitated when we asked you if you'd be a patron, but to have you, Jofra, Roland Butcher, the legends, like you jumped at it. I guess the question for you, is there any hesitation in lending your voice to the history?
Not at all, Ebs. And, you know, that's another thing that I highlight in my book about having role models and having people that look like you, achieving things that you can look at and say, well, if he can achieve, so can I. If he has gone into this field, why can't I go into that field? And that is what it is all about. People being able to up to people, having role models and icons that they can say, well, I want to be like such and such. And that is going to be very, very important going forward. As I've said to some people who have approached me about certain things in the UK, because I've been approached from different organizations about certain things that if I would like to see change or whatever. And I say, what you have got to do is make it a situation and a circumstance under which everyone feels welcome and they can get involved. And once you have people in front, leading the way, people will follow.
And it really struck home this week. We've just done the Surrey-Middlesex game. And 20, 30 years ago, that game would be littered with black Afro-Caribbean players. I've done a list. Will Slack, Roland Butcher, Norman Cowan, Wayne Daniel, Monty Lynch, Sylvester Clark, Chris Lewis, Desmond Haynes, Dean Headley, Mark Butcher, Joey Benjamin, Tony Gray, Alex Tudor. I could go on and on and on. And at the Oval this week, we had Kemar Roach and Amar Verdi as well. The decline was so obvious this week in the game we did. Why is that decline?
There's so many factors, Nasser. The one I drill into first is the structure of how we find talent. So, you know, we'll go into this a little bit, but the private school system is where most talent is found. And let's be honest, as a black kid in England, you know, when you look at the demographics and the spread, there won't be a huge percentage. Second, structurally. So you take an area like the Oval, right? You're around there. We're seeing kids go off to athletics, to football, to rugby, to other sports. Why not cricket? In Lambeth, where there's 33,000 black kids walking past the gate every day, there is no junior club. There's no facility, no infrastructure that allows. And when we started mapping out, because we've done a lot of mapping exercises, there are very few infrastructural opportunities to find talent and them to develop. And if you're not going to a private school, you've got no chance. And then you layer on so many other things of the disconnect with the West Indian community and the British community around the 90s. There was a divorce and there was a bit of a fallout. You look at the other opportunities that developed. I think there's a layer of opportunities, but really what I think is quite clear, since we've done ACE, there is still a high interest. The community are really engaged when you reach out and let them know that the game is for them. And one thing I want to do, Wardy, if it's okay, is I do want to widen this conversation wider than the black community. I would say the big vision for me, before we bring up some stats, is that I want to see our game, which we all love, be representative of our society. And our society is made up of everything from white working class, the British South Asians, all sorts of different communities. And I think what ACE is doing is trying to tackle one specific problem, but we've got a lot to tackle. And the biggest one we have is around the fact that the elite and access to wealth dominate our game. We're just about to bring up a stat which we got from Tom Brown, who's amazing research from the Birmingham City University. And he has started to look at the performance structure within our game. So if you have a little look down, what this does is shows the socio-demographic profile of performance in England. That sounds very heavy, but what it shows is in different regions across the whole of the game, your chances of playing, if you're private versus state school educated, range from, at its worst, sort of 22 times down to 2.6. Now, speaking to him, what he was quite evident on is that academically, these numbers are serious skews, that there's only 7% of our country are educated. So 93% of our population are heavily skewed against getting through our systems. That's not good for our sport. And I don't know, I'll throw it to you, Nasser, quickly for a second, but, you know, we do play in this game that I personally want to see not just the black British kids getting through, not just the black Asian kids, British Asian kids getting through, the white. I want to see our sport represent more like football. So if you throw that to football, only between 2 and 5%, if you look at men, are from private schools, which is about right considering how many people. I don't know how you feel seeing those stats, but for me, I think we need to crack that bigger issue of how do we get more everyday working class people playing the game.
So can I just clarify with those stats? Are scholarships and everything taken out of that? You're not, because a lot of the argument is, I, for example, went to a state school, Forest in Sainsbrook, saw me play cricket and said, we're having you. Joe Root was at a state school, I think Worksop College took him. A lot of the England boys went to a private school on scholarships. That's not including scholarship, those stats.
So that's the bit that I found fascinating. When I spoke to Tom, and I've spent a lot of time because he's got data of all sorts across the whole game, he has taken out the scholarships. So the situation is worse. So where we see it at the worst, it's 22 more times likely if you go to a private school. That's excluding scholarships. If you add scholarships in, the number is even worse. So that starts to really break it down. You know, you look at London, which is one of the most, you know, cosmopolitan cities. You look at areas like East Mids, which Birmingham is the most diverse city in the country. And yet still we're seeing such a skew towards private school, kids from private school making it through our professional structure. And I think this is the big issue we've got to address. And then, and I'm going to throw this one to you, but I'm sure you've seen these stats now, then we've got to deal with actually the other problem we've got is we have a high interest from communities like the British Asian community. They're playing the game at nearly 30%. So our whole country, of all the different people playing in the recreational game, 30% are from a British Asian background, but less than 5% are making it into professional cricket. And I think that's the first stat I want to throw to you, Nasser. Like, you're from the community. How does that resonate for you?
Well, I mean, resonates definitely from what I see in county cricket. So my boy would have been involved in district and to a degree county age groups. And anytime he goes for a trial, you'll see at those nets at Chelmsford, a real diverse group. There'll be a massive 50% plus British Asian turnout because of our South Essex, East London, Ilford, where I was brought up, the Ilford Cricket School producing a diverse bunch of cricketers, not so much Afro-Caribbean, unfortunately, like it was in my day, but that British Asian interest is still there. But it has been very noticeable for me that when it gets to academy level, and then obviously contracts, as those stats showed you and proves, they don't seem to get the stats. They are there in the age groups, but they don't seem to be getting the contracts and going on to represent their counties. Now, what I would say is that Essex, and that's the only county I can speak about, Essex have put a lot of things in place for our British Asian community that lives in the Ilford, East London sort of way. Mikey will know the Akram family, Arfan Akram, who is from that community. He will go in there, he understands the issues and the problems. I remember people saying I needed to do more. I myself said once, why are all these British Asians supporting Pakistan and India and Sri Lanka? Why aren't they supporting England? And Imran Khan picked me up on it. Imran Khan said, that's very easy for you to say, Nasser Hussain. You're whitish, middle class, went to a private school. You've not known the problems that are in that sort of community, in inner city community, British Asian lad growing up. And that's why, Wardy, the diversity throughout, from bottom to top, is vital. The more Arfan Akrams, the more Ebonys you have, the understand. I mean, Ebony's been there, worn the T-shirt. So when she's speaking about things like that, she knows what she's talking about. And that's why diversity is not about box ticking. Diversity is about having people at the top who understand the problems that are going right through the system.
Mikey, Nasser, go on, Ed. Sorry, carry on. No, carry on. Please carry on.
No, I was just going to say there's a few things I wanted to pick up there that I think ultimately what it needs is dedicated action. And one more stat I just want to throw in there, because we know that the Black British is declining. We know that the British Asians playing in high numbers, but there are challenges getting through, and I think we need some interventions. But actually the one that hit me the most stark was the white state school kids against the white private school kids. If you're a white privately educated kid, you're 16 times more likely to transfer through a county pathway to professional status, 16 times more. So what that tells me is we need to do some serious interventions to ensure that young people across different diverse backgrounds can progress. You know, this is why we're using ACE, is because we know that what it shows is that for London, for example, you're 12 times less likely to play. So we need to make sure that you don't fall all the way out the structure. You have an opportunity. We need to take some serious action. I think that stat around the white British state school kids versus the white privately educated told me that this is why we're struggling to get a game that is representative of society.
Mike, Nass read off some of the names that could have been playing in a Middlesex against Surrey fixture, Roland Butcher, Chris Lewis, whoever. And Ebbs talks about the lack of infrastructure to get some of the young black kids in London playing, and the amount of kids that are walking past the doors of the Oval every day. The decline has got to also, let's not be honest, it's got to be about, if they have got anywhere near it, they've probably been treated badly.
Well, that has a big thing to do with it as well, definitely. People keep on asking me, what does cricket or what does football or what does any particular sport have to do to improve the situation? I keep telling them, sure, cricket, football, other sports may want to do certain things within their structure, within their organization, but the most important thing is to fix the society. Everyone that goes to a game, whatever game it is, everyone who works in administration, who is responsible for coaching, whatever, they come from the society. And if they are coming from a society with these biases and these tendencies, it will go into the structures that they are representing and they are working for and that they are getting involved in. So if we can fix the society, the sports will automatically fix themselves. When you can have people within a sport who definitely favor one over the other, whether it's private over state or British Asian over white or black, when you have people who have these things in their heads that will jeopardize people's careers because of where they're from or how they look, we will continuously have this problem. So we need to fix the society. And people in these organizations, they need to weed out people like that when they come across them. Don't just ignore them or just have a quiet word with them. Either they come and conform or you get rid of them. Otherwise, you'll never get rid of this problem, Wardy. You will never get rid of the problem if you have people like that involved. And that is my thing, educating people and getting them to understand what this life is all about. And those who don't want to jump on the bandwagon and jump on the ship, leave them behind. As I've said to so many people, a lot of people come tell me, oh, Mike, look at this and look at that. I say, listen, not everyone can be saved. Not everyone is going to understand. You move forward with those who do.
So I'll ask you about one thing Thierry Henry said to you in your book. quotes from him saying, "I want a fair call." What does that mean? What did you take from that?
I went on, if you read the chapter with Ntini Makaya, I went on to deal with that even more with the Makaya Ntini and what is happening in South Africa and the quota system and all that. Thierry Henry and Makaya basically are just saying, listen, I don't want to be put where I don't belong. I don't want to be put in a position because of the color of my skin or because of my background. I want to be put in a position because I belong in that position. So that no one can ever say, I am there because of this circumstance or because of this law or because of this rule. I am there because I deserve to be there. And that was Makaya Ntini's problem throughout his career, as we saw, as you must have read, Wadi, where he kept on saying he has played 60-odd test matches, he has 100-odd wickets or 200-odd wickets, and he's still considered a quota player. And that is what Thierry is saying. Don't give me a job because of the color of my skin or because you want to tick a box. And the Hope Powell situation was the same. If you read the Hope Powell chapter, when Hope is saying she wondered why she was offered this job. Are they ticking a box? Do they really think that I can do this job? And when you put people in position because of quota systems or regulations or laws that you bring into place, it does not help. You have got to make sure, first of all, the person that you're putting in that position is capable of doing it, and that person has the confidence to know that they are there because they are capable of doing that job, so they go out and get the job done. If they are not capable of doing it, you have sometimes, people will put someone in a position just to set them up, to then say, I told you so. They put somebody in a position that they know they cannot handle. And then when that person fails, they say, see, I gave them an opportunity, they can't do it. Let us move on now and do our thing that we were doing before. So put people in positions that deserve to be there. Give them the confidence to know that they should be there so that they can go out and do the job. And then others will follow. It's all about opportunity, giving everyone equal opportunity and not just putting somebody in a position because you're ticking a box.
Interesting. Can I bring it back to Ace? It's just a couple of final questions. A lot of the stats are talking about people going into the professional side of the game. Is that what the ACE program is about? Because I thought it was interesting in the piece where there's talking about maybe becoming an SNC or working in and around cricket, or maybe just enjoying cricket, getting to play the game and getting enthused and getting that enthusiasm and talk into the community. Is that a big part of it too?
Yeah, so there's a whole piece to this because sport has so many factors. So I think the number one clear factor is making sure that talent can progress from the grassroots through to the elite. So we're looking at that progression in the talent pathway. However, we've already found we've got kids who are interested in sports media. Well, we look around our media box often when we get in there and it's a similar position. So we're now looking at, can we support and facilitate young people that we come across who have that interest to move into that area, move into S&C, move into the game. I think our game will be stronger in 10 years' time if we can enthuse and excite a community. And then someone who's writing about it will inspire more people. Someone who might be taking my job maybe in 10 years' time, maybe even 5. I don't know how long I've got left, but, you get my point. I think that the key is that we want to make the game more representative as a whole. And I think that's what's exciting about ACE is we're seeing results, we're seeing them quickly, we're seeing there's talent, and we're seeing there's a real interest. Even if people haven't had that heritage. I didn't grow up knowing much about the West Indian team, an amazing team, until much later into my career. So what I am saying is that I don't think we have to always wait till someone knows about that history. We can enthuse them today from absolute scratch because the game is an amazing game. And the wider parts of the game, I think it will be a natural transition.
From your programme, are you seeing the problems or the changes the same for girls and boys? There's obviously yourself, Sophia Dunkley, Isha. Is it the same issues that you're facing or different?
It's worse in terms of numbers, if I'm being honest. We only had 17% engagement of girls. If you look at we're talking about these numbers, these are based on the male game. The women's game is well off. I mean, well off. And what we're aware of, which is fine, I don't have a problem with that. If you're aware of the problem, what it means is we're doubling down, so we're actually putting a lot more effort. But what's really exciting is, we've got these development hubs where all the schools that we're talent scouting, we're offering the kids to these hubs. Loads of girls are turning up, loads of talented girls are turning up, and they're loving it. So what that just tells me is that we've just got to make sure now we transition. I think the engagement piece, work like Chance to Shine, the street programs, they're doing great work. Now we just have to transition and make that leap to get them into our performance pathway. I think there are other barriers when it comes to girls in sport anyway, which link to all sorts of issues around, identity. Do we believe sports for us? Are the opportunities there? The list can go on when it comes to female engagement. So for us, what we've decided to do is double down on, so we're actually doing more activity, focusing on bringing more girls, because we know that we have to do the extra work because the numbers aren't there. And if I'm being brutal about the actual statistics, the girls and the women's game needs a lot more work.
Interesting, but it's a brilliant program. Well done with that. Ebs, fantastic. And thanks to you all for chatting on the Cricket Show today. Thank you, Nasser. And thank you, of course, to Michael Holding. Now, Mikey, one thing, when you do arrive from Cayman in early June, bring some of that sunshine, will you please, mate? There's a good lad.
I'm bottling it at the moment, Wardy.
That's what we want.
Sky Sports Cricket. Feel it all.